the fact that the threat of a resumption of hostilities wasn't enough for them to scurry something together, what does that tell you about how much leverage the United States has by continuing to use force as a threat here?
Right, that's a great question. I think they called his bluff. I think that the Iranians figured out that the whole taco thing, the whole Trump always chickens out. They estimated that his bluster, at first it shocked them and frightened them. And then the more they, I guess, became familiar with his MO, the more they saw that he was all talk. And that I think that the other big point is Trump wildly underestimated the Iranians' capacity to suffer. I really think that he thought that by bombing and causing widespread devastation and all the rest of it, that he could leverage them into a negotiation. Instead, he watched them martyr themselves and strengthen their hand. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors in Iran by any means. But I suspect that Trump probably does, and the Israelis probably do. And they've come to the conclusion, and that's why they pulled off yesterday, come to the conclusion that it was disastrous to continue.
I mean, it's also surprising that they would even schedule or even get to the point where they were committing the vice president to go to Pakistan when they hadn't even gotten sign off on broad concepts of a deal.
Well, I think that they were obviously hopeful. And, to Geraldo's point, we don't actually know what's going on behind the scenes. I think it's fair to say that part of this is because they are, in fact, fractured. And then, of course, makes complete and total sense, given the situation on the ground, that we would doubt that there is fractures within their leadership to the extent that it exists is kind of naive to me. I think, you want to make sure that you're doing a lasting peace. Yesterday, you had brought up, I think it was a Reuters piece that suggested that international leaders were kind of worried about whether or not the president was going to lead for a headline and just get something done. This shows, again, quite the opposite, that he's being thoughtful and not wanting to just grab a headline and is, in fact, willing to take on a political cost so that we can get to a point where we have a lasting peace.
I'm not sure that's what this shows, because it would be one thing if the reporting indicated that we were close to something, headline, a lasting deal. It suggests that we weren't close to any of those things. We couldn't get them to even respond to broad strokes. You're willing to talk about your nuclear deal. That doesn't suggest that we were close to anything at all.
No, and we shouldn't be in this war at all. These last 7 weeks have been horrible for the United States of America and for people all across the globe. The reality is we've spent $60 billion on this war. It's going to be another billion or two by the time the show happens again tomorrow. And the cost has been real and has been detrimental. We've had over a dozen service members who have died, hundreds who have been wounded. In my community, in the constituents that I represent, they're feeling this at the gas pump, in the grocery store. People are deciding whether or not they're going to be able to afford the medicine or the rent. The consequences have been dire, and this administration has done this because we have a wannabe dictator as president of the United States. And again, we are in a war that was completely unnecessary. It is. It's an authoritarian, an elected authoritarian who is operating as a dictator, who thought that he could kill, who thought that he could kill, destroy, and bomb an entire nation into submission. And that isn't what has happened. And that isn't what's happened.
Fair and reasonable. I've said this before, to debate the actual issues here and whether or not we think that this was the right move, but to immediately go to this lazy talking point that is used by the left all the time, just screaming about a dictator in chief. And it's not a serious conversation. If you say that you're serious about the issues that people are facing, talk about the policies.
It is serious.
Instead of going to
it is serious. Let's talk about the policies. I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's talk about the big ugly bill that cost us billions of dollars.
I think it is fair to say, in this moment, this war is what's on the agenda.
That's right.
And it is a test for President Trump. It's a test for the United States. One of the interesting pieces of reporting also to come out is that our stockpiles of weapons are being depleted. 45% of our precision strike weapons expended, 50% of our THAAD, these are missiles that intercept ballistic missiles, have been expended. Patriot batteries, 50% expended. Tomahawk missiles, 30% expended. It's going to take years to rebuild these stockpiles. And the concern is that if there is another conflict, that we're not going to be ready. So that's the other thing that's on the horizon here for us?
I think that it's a very rational concern because there might be a conflict in a completely different area of the world that we haven't even anticipated yet. We're worried about a peer conflict with China that we might not have enough weapons to support. What I think we need to do a better job at, and by the way, I think this war is a disaster. We'll talk about the messaging later, but we do not have a dictator. I'm sorry. We have a very unsuccessful dictator. If we have a dictator, he's checked continually all the time by his own Congress, by his own courts, by other countries and our allies. There is no conversation about the Iranian dictatorship and torturing their own people. I mean, I would just be curious to hear what you have to say about that.
I appreciate that. So let's be very clear. This Congress has capitulated to what this administration has wanted at every turn, from the big ugly bill to cutting Medicaid to making it harder for people to live. And I'm not saying that Iran is a perfect nation. What I'm saying is this president ran.
Could you
on
condemn
not
the
having-
actual dictator?
Yeah.
Can we talk about this? Because we said we had a president who said he didn't want to have forever wars. He said he didn't want to have forever wars, and yet here we are in one. $60 billion.
you
We have
mentioned
people in
7
this
weeks
administration, as well as Congress people, Democrats and Republicans, who are making billions.
Just to add layers to this, the president is now putting on the table a bailout of the UAE
Really?
in the middle of a war that is incredibly unpopular, that has no end in sight. How is that going to work for the American people?
We don't know because we're preliminarily talking about this. It's not an official proposal. This
Do you
is
think
something
it's a
that
good
they're
idea
saying.
for us to do?
It could potentially be a good idea depending on how it actually works.
To lend money to the UAE?
In this context, depending on the specifics,
They walk in golden slippers.
so we do this with other nations pretty frequently or semi-frequently.
Can I say one other thing about you started the piece with the depletion of our stockpiles. How do we know what the depletion of our stockpiles are? How is it that all of a sudden every news outlet in the country got the depletion of our stockpiles? Who benefits when there's fear over depletion of stockpiles? Right. Defense contractors benefit. In the same way, oil companies benefit when the price of oil goes up. You can't divorce yourself from the, everybody is not all, doopity-doo and rally behind the flag and bad guys, let's get the bad. There are those with self-serving, nefarious motivations also.
You don't think we actually have a depletion?
It's an interesting question. I have covered war, 11 assignments in Afghanistan, 11 in Iraq. I've seen lots of armaments be depleted over time. You have there is a process where there is constant replenishment, and to think that we can get a depletion of our stockpiles fighting a third-rate country like Iran, and this was the army we were going to take against China and Russia, I think it's preposterous.
That's scary. Yeah.
I hear your skepticism, but I do think that there were some unique aspects of this particular conflict that would make it possible or even plausible, even if you are skeptical. Because Iran had very cheap drones that we were using very expensive weapons to shoot down. And that imbalance is pretty unique to this conflict. And it also, I think, suggests that that's a problem that we need to resolve. And I think that's one of the things that has been revealed by this.
As far as I know, we lost 3 F-35s. We lost 1 F-18. I don't know, I guess a couple of accidents here and there.
Yeah.
In terms of what our armed forces have expended, we have a vast amount of munitions.
You're missing Ukraine as well.
Here's what I'll say. I just want to say, like you mentioned, the policy. Those are policy choices. Those are choices that when we say, are we going to? I'm sorry, when you the UAE and we bail them out, that is money that is going not into the United States but across seas, and that is what Justin is saying in terms of when his folks are saying, I thought you were going to put America first, and my pocketbook is getting smaller and smaller and tighter, and then the UAE and their golden slippers are getting richer and richer. And to Geraldo's point, we know that defense contractors make millions and billions of dollars with federal contracts, and yet again, that actually is not going into the everyday American pocket. So those are actually policy decisions that this administration has to account for.